So, Michael, I believe we heard from you earlier today. I missed that talk, but so I think most people know who you are. I don't so much. Nassim, I missed most of your talk, but I got a little bit of it. Yeah. So I guess we'll play past the controller here. But yeah, Michael, I guess most people, I don't know if there were any arrivals subsequent to you joining a little while ago, and you want to just say your 2 cents again.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a freelance developer working for the Stacks Foundation. Basically working on protocol level changes on Stacks to on-ramp Bitcoin directly onto Stacks. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
There we go.
Awesome.
Thanks, Caitlin. Nassim, I think.
I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah, so I experiment on smart contracts, and I worked for layer ones in 2017 in South Korea, very much, and I've been in crypto space for a while in DeFi. I have 2 DeFi platforms at the moment that I run in, and I built a funny AI music that I launched about 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Nice one. Yeah, pleased to be here with you guys. So the topic of the panel, or at least the title, is the implications and potential of blockchain technology within building a decentralized future. And I think, given that the whole theme is code is law, I think we can dig into some fun stuff here. Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but I'm expecting us to just chat and debate or whatever wherever the conversation might lead.
I'd love to hear you, to be honest.
So I guess, so Nassim, I believe you have a bit of a background in the gaming world as well?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I've been a gamer myself, that's how I got into Bitcoin early. I had computers there, available to mine, so it was always on. But yeah, I've got a gaming background, helped in developing certain, say, building just maps for a game, for a familiar game that I want to play, because it's an FPS game called Counter-Strike. So I've been involved in 2014-15 when the new version came out. That's
Okay, nice. I have spent a little bit of time in Counter-Strike myself, so maybe I was on one of your maps then.
Yeah, I mean, the map that I built was, you probably heard of discourse.
I've heard of it, I think.
Yeah, so on the 1.6 version, and then got involved in Dcash on the CIL version.
Yes.
Yes,
I do know that one. Now, in terms of like game design and Cody's law, let's bring things back to what we're talking about. Like in gaming, the rules are like typically like pretty absolute and unviolable, violable at least. So much like in Cody's law, with a lot of like decentralized tech and smart contracts obligating code. What can we sort of learn from parallels in gaming versus how we build today and incentivize things?
I don't know. I mean, for me, gaming works like a lot on top of blockchain, pretty much, because I don't know, everyone heard of the game theory of blockchain, and everything's protocol based in blockchain, and the same way as like usually coding a boss in a game, for example, like you tell it to do this and that. It's the same as basically coding a protocol, you tell them to do this and that. Most consensus mechanisms are like basically boss or I would say a boss that you play against in a game, for example. That's an absolute.
I really like that as an analogy. Yeah, the consensus mechanism is it's there, and you're building and playing around it to a certain extent. So I mean, and games often need like balancing and to ensure like fun and fairness.
Exactly.
Do you think that like translates to what you're building?
Yeah, in a way. I see a lot of games are becoming more open source, or they allow communities of players, developers who actually jump in and help them develop and so on. So, I mean, innovation will never stop at the end of the day, especially when it comes to gaming and creating new fun stuff. But yeah, I think, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so at any stage, feel free to just grab a controller from me as well. Like, but yeah, I know you've worked a fair bit on like the DAO governance side, on black blocks, and yeah. So stacks rather. It used to be block stacks, wasn't it? Or
yeah, started as block stack.
Yes.
They decentralized and rebranded out around 2019.
Okay, so that was part of the decentralization process as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in terms of like Cody's law, I know you spoke about it earlier. Again, I said I missed that one. But yeah, in the context of like blockchain and DAOs, are we encoding certain values or ideals into our systems? And if so, how do we decide what those should be?
I think that's down to, well, it's kind of like it can be an explosion of experiments, isn't it, with the DAO, particularly on Ethereum. What Ellen was talking about earlier, I think there's so much scope for that to jump out of the blockchain and crypto space into real world organizations. So there's so many opportunities for like just, you know, an organization like John Lewis, say, that operates as a partnership to adopt kind of DAO technology and start experimenting. Yeah, so that's something that I think is a direction that will be great to explore and bring kind of real world companies into the space.
Are you seeing some of that adoption in terms of in terms of larger companies like I haven't seen anything about John Lewis per se.
No, yeah, that's more of a kind of just a contact.
Okay.
Just for a neighbour actually. But yeah, no, I don't know at that level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all excited as well myself as to more adoption around DAOs. I'm always excited about that as a governance system.
I think there's a bigger conversation about like the tokenomics of DAOs and whether DAOs are about tokenomics or they're about governance and voting. So there's a kind of interesting.
There's a huge debate around that.
Yeah, one person, one vote type kind of issue. What had the effect of Wales on voting in DAOs? I think these are kind of certainly issues we've been thinking about in the project that we built last year on stats.
Do you see like a solution to that being something like a digital identity?
I think digital identity is part of it, for sure. Yeah. There's already, like, in fact, W3C have created standards around DIDs, which, you know, are going to play a role. I think Microsoft are adopting decentralized identity. Yeah. So I think there'll be a quite interesting, kind of coalescence of big tech, the big tech companies around identity, with how they start thinking about decentralized identity.
Okay, now this itself I know has its own caveats in terms of there's that voting power being somewhat capitalistic in its sense. It has its obvious flaws, but what would you say are the sort of flaws to one wallet, one vote?
So, like the stuff we were kind of playing around with was coding in smart contracts the ability to do liquid democracy. So these are the kind of experiments that we're interested in. So how you can delegate your votes to somebody and then redelegate them, what the kind of parameters should be around the process of doing that. And that kind of like creates a sort of issue-based demo, potential for voting. But at the moment it's all kind of protocol-based voting, so we're voting on upgrades to the blockchain, those kind of things.
But is it council-based voting?
Yes, it's like,
is it council-based voting? Is it like a snapshot sort of?
Yeah, snapshot. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I guess there's some of that in terms of that delegation in delegated proof of stake type networks, like delegating to validators, but from that that's not using one wallet, one vote. So are you sort of looking to combine, or do you think that's a more appealing solution?
I think it has to. like evolve alongside reputation systems, decentralized identity. I think these are like a family of kind of protocols and areas that need to be developed and worked on.
What about KYT?
Hold the button, the red button on the bottom.
Oh yeah,
Just hold it, yeah.
perfect. How about Hello. How about KYT against KYC?
KYT, say?
Know your transaction against know your personnel.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I'm always, I'm always questioning myself what's next, because I mean, decentralization, or in perfect world, or in a perfect decentralized world, KYT will play more of a role than KYC. It's all about who are you? Are you vouching for decentralization, or would you go with regulation?
I mean, it's often a kind of like, it's not one or the other. It's often a bit of both.
It's just always a bit of both.
Yeah.
That KYT side definitely sounds like the don't trust, verify type thinking.
In a way. I mean, but that's what really works in decentralization in my point of view. I mean, no one will go and KYC, like, if they have like certain bitcoins they don't want to.
I think this is Stuart back to talking about AI. This is an area where AI play really important roles.
Absolutely.
And analysing traffic routes from wallets and being able to trust in different entities that are connected.
Absolutely. I think that's the future. Seeing a huge takeover of AI, especially in the Web3, and merging AI with Web3 at the moment. So I think it will play a big role in we match like buyers, sellers. I'm sure we'll be matching transactions soon.
Yeah.
Via AML rules and so on. So we'll see weighing out regulations in general.
Well, I guess AI is a useful point here in terms of Cody's law, and so that idea of AI models kind of being a bit of a black box to us is very much, in my mind, kind of an antithesis to smart contractual open code. Like, how do you see that resolving itself over time through that adoption between AI and smart contracts and Web3? Solving that sort of black box issue of large models. To either of you.
You can start. Well, in a brief, it will replace plenty of workforce, and that's how we saw a layoff like about 3 months ago from IBM of over 10,000 developers if you live there, and the majority have been replaced by AI infrastructures. So I think that they'll be AI takeover no matter what. That's my take, but
yeah, it feels inevitable.
Yeah.
It does.
I know I have way too much fun asking ChatGPT for coding and using it as my pen.
I think it raises like deeper issues. It's like, what is the value of work? And if BT can lay off 10,000 people and replace them with AI, then it sort of we need to start asking different questions about what work is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What money is.
Yeah. I guess
Universal.
that touches on. Sorry. touches on like that's where like sort of universal basic income type things start to come to the fore, and people needing some cash even though machines are doing all the work. But I guess we're getting slightly more philosophical there, and is there a way to establish like universal or objective values in a decentralized system, or will these always be subject to change and negotiation?
That was pretty much the subject of my talk. So
right.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I think particularly Bitcoin can kind of provide a way of kind of
absolutely,
asserting that kind of fact happened at a certain time.
I mean, there's always a debate of what is DeFi. My answer is always like Bitcoin started DeFi at the end of the day, and decentralized finance started, but probably like some other like tokens that started as loyalty coins online before Bitcoin built around like Cash and so on. But Bitcoin definitely growth of DeFi is the future of DeFi, future of decentralization.
Yeah, and I mean it's the gold standard in terms of decentralization and the way the network works. So yeah, I'm definitely for that one too. And I think it's appropriate being at the event that we are. And, but yeah, let me see. I have a few other fun questions. Some of them were also aimed at some of our other co-panelists here. But yeah, so I guess one of the issues I've run into sometimes with empirical code that especially in immutable systems is around like data standardization and being able to get adoption. There's that beautiful XKCD comic of there's 12 current standards. What? 12? No, ridiculous. We need one standard to fit everyone's use cases, and then soon later there are now 13 competing standards. So like how do we resolve that in a blockchain world? And I feel like that's also something that comes into that immutability that feeds code is law. Yeah, just around that standardization.
I mean, one take. It's a very open question, but what I was going to ask earlier, Nassim, about the gaming stuff, is about Russell 1155, the token standard.
I think it will be the future. I mean, 1115 is just it's just a collection, but there is the ERC 360, I think, the new standard for gaming. And I think we'll have more functionality within the smart contract itself than what we have right now. I mean, we're limited to 4 or 5 different functions, but we'll be adding extended functionality to smart contracts, and they'll be widely used in gaming.
Yeah, we have kind of these problems that we're kind of reproducing the standards you have on Ethereum on Stack. So we have 613, which is semi-fungible tokens that follows 1155. So going back to the question about standards, it's enormously complicated to kind of get the standard right. You think it's straightforward, and you're specifying something, and you say you have multiple different standards for the same thing, but it's because over time people see different aspects that have been missed in the formulation. You get branches and.
Well, at the moment, the way I think my take is there's no standard in innovation. I mean, we're always building, we're always evolving, and there's always law or regulations that will run after what we're doing. Pretty much.
In a way, that's
not the other way around.
That's a very good point. Stands kind of a limitation.
Exactly. So we're not limited to creativity.
Yeah.
That's it.
But on the other hand, you need the standards for the ecosystem.
You need to follow, for ecosystems in general, especially database standards and so on, especially if you want to get licensed. If you want your licenses, you need to follow certain standards and certain regulatory frameworks, especially when it comes to your data clusters and your database in general. Or maybe database, it's all about privacy policies. But code-wise, you're free to build, you're free to create, that's it, that's the way I believe.
I love that. So, that it fits the ethos of Web3 as well. Like, just a lot of people still currently in that stage of hacking a lot of things together and seeing what works. But I mean, it's a good point across the ERC standards. Actually, in terms of what was it, 3360? Is that how?
3365, I think. It's the new standard. I need to look it up. I haven't experimented yet with it, but we've been experimenting around 1155s. So on one of my DeFi platforms, we built one of the first NFT staking protocols outside of B2B gaming. So we give out some tokens to whoever stake our NFTs. I mean, 1155 cents. It works. Let me find something. I apologize, to pull my phone out right in the middle and all that.
I guess while we're googling as well, do you see a future where there are just too many, by example, NFT standards, different ERCs that end up fragmenting?
Yeah, there'll be a balance between what's meaningful and what's transferable between blockchains and what's kind of Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good point in terms of what's transferable as well. Yeah. Did you find? Yes.
I apologise. I was just listening to.
Yeah. But yeah, I also need to go have a read on 3365 then as well. I believe there's like a minute left.
Unless you guys want to do some Q&A.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that as well. Some Q&A, and I guess we have three controllers, so I can.
Does anyone have any questions for the developer panel? Yes, sorry.
Question. So, how safe is a smart contract auditor, and what kind of how much can we trust them? Because as a DeFi investor, many of us just kind of can see they have a smart contract audit, and then that's it. Well, they're safe and secure. But from a due diligence perspective, is there something that a non-technical investor like myself can do to kind of make sure and vet the project?
Nassim, I'll go first because you know more about this. But my experience is that auditing is a big deal. It's expensive. So small startups don't have access to external audits. It's a problem. But obviously it's a good practice to get your contracts audited.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, an audit is a must for the security and safety of your investors if you own a smart contract. So, or you can use one of the audit tools that we have. For example, the one that I showed earlier for free. You can check the contract if it's safe to buy or not. But auditing is a big, important step in smart contract health, and especially like if you want to give it to any regulators, they'll definitely ask for an audit beforehand. And some do it for cheap, some do it for expensive. But I think the price standards will fall rapidly because we're seeing a huge deal of smart contracts coming down in space. So you can get a really good audit, for example, from one of the first people in space that started auditing in Ukraine, I think they're called Cudos, for about 1,000 or 2,000. And you can get one from Certic for depending on how many lines of code you have in contracts first, but you're probably going to get it for over 30,000 depending on what is your smart contract as well. But again,
do they cover aspects like custody and private keys?
No, that's yours. Okay. Yeah. So custody and private keys, either you're announced a contract just for the safety aspect of it, for the sake of your community, or basically you can be secure, you can lock you use a client lock for anything.
Thanks, guys. I think we have one more question.
So the UK is known as the regulatory place of the world, and regulation is always moving, it's always been quite fluid. So what is the connection in terms of making it standardised so that it can be transferable across all smart contracts, across all jurisdictions? What's happening there?
I think your microphone was a bit off. Sorry, can you repeat the last question because I didn't hear the last bit, sorry.
Sure. So what I said was that the UK is known as being the regulatory location in the world, and also the Prime Minister is talking about continuing that element, especially within the crypto world. So the question I asked was how the rules are really quite fluid, but how are we making sure that we are able to stay abreast of that?
Yeah, so I mean the space have a huge deal of pre-audited contracts with different functionalities, like libraries of smart contracts that a lot of people go and use, so they don't fall into these stuff. And we see a lot of, I would say, entities pushing this sort of libraries to put standard to smart contract regulations very much. But I don't know about the UK that much. Most of jurisdictions that I've been dealing with are outside the UK very much. UK is something new, and we're looking to discover it. partnered with Brand Rodney to for our domain platform, for example, and they have like certain smart contract practices that they actually like prefer everything from libraries, for example. If they're looking to actually do due diligence on selling an entity or something, they only saw I think 4 or 5 so far, but 2 of them they need to do like a huge deal of scrutiny around their smart contracts, and some of them had to be redone because they weren't up to standards, so they weren't audited, for example.
So in terms of standardisation,
Libraries with audited contracts.
okay, so that's what is being recognised as these other direction.
That's the direction for everyone, like to be safe in general.
Thank you.
You know.
Okay, so we're running a little bit behind, guys. So we're gonna start on to the next time. But give